This is lesson number 3 in a series of 8 lessons on techniques for creative living. And the lesson this evening is entitled, Refusing to be Diminished or Depressed by what has already happened or cannot be changed. That's a long title, but I liked it. Refusing to be diminished or depressed by what has already happened or cannot be changed. Would you like to grow and make progress? Would you like the flow of prosperity to really come alive in your life? Would you like to become free and fulfilled? Would you like to become a happier and more exciting person? Would you? Now, those questions were loaded. I made them up, and I already knew what the answers were. If there's anyone here that can say no to any one of those questions, you need to leave right now and let someone else have your seat. My fantastic friend, change is impossible if you always do things the way that you've always done things. And that's what we do. We keep doing things the way that we've always done things, wondering why we don't change. Santayana once said, he or she who cannot remember their past is doomed to repeat it. And what he meant was that past patterns buried in the subjective or the unconscious level of the mind continue to surface and become present moment experiences. In this way, the patterns of our past continue to occur over and over, disguised as present moment experiences. And we usually are unaware of what's happening to us because we do not understand how our minds work, and because we're unaware, we do not have the power to change. And this is why that you can, in your desire to change, can move to a distant part of our country, and in a very short time you will reproduce an almost exact replica of your experience here. Or you can get tired of your job and tired of your job and move because you're tired of your job, and you will find one just like unto it and settle down at about the same level of that which you left. Because if you have not remembered your past, if you have not seen it, you will tend to reproduce it. Now, I would alter Santayana's statement in this way. He or she who does not face and make their peace with their past is doomed to repeat it. Without question, we're seduced again and again by our past. And that seduction takes many forms. Now, it isn't enough to remember our past mistakes. That's important. We have to remember them so that we can laugh at them, make our peace with them. Why do you take these things so seriously? What do they have to do with this person seated here? Make our peace with them and forget them, meaning to no longer have them as active patterns functioning within us. Now, some people remember their past and remember and remember and remember and repeat and talk about their past. They live in their past, and therefore they have no future. They look back over the shoulder of their mind so much that they only stumble forward, fall. This, of course, is the ancient story of Lot's wife looking back at the past, longingly crystallized, turned into a pillar of salt, immobilized. Living in the past is the most self-immobilizing behavior that the mind can perform. It is unacceptable behavior. If the past is where you want to be, you have no future. Now, if this is true for you in regard to anything or anyone, I'm going to give you a familiar and very powerful prayer that will bring about a healing. Almost instantaneously, if you will begin to work with this prayer and develop the technique of applying it in specific areas of your life. It's called the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. In all of your life or mine, you may have never heard one sentence more important, more meaningful, more powerful than that sentence. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. The word serenity means unruffled, tranquil, dignified, unclouded, bright. Give me the bright mind, unclouded. You cannot change the past or what you did or what you did not do. The past does not exist now in this moment except in the minds of people who will not release it, who live in that imaginary place of what was or might have been. And if you will take a good look at the past that you would try to live in now, when you were back in those moments, you were looking back from that point to another past. You didn't even like it when you were there. Why would you go back? One major self-immobilizing, victimizing, and psychologically castrating tactic that's used in our culture constantly employs references to a series of things that you can do nothing to change. Do you know that we spend most of our energy, far more than 50% of our energy, of our time and thought and words that stream forth from our mouths, dealing with things that we have absolutely no power over. And of course, the most obvious thing which you can do nothing about is your past behavior. You cannot undo what you've done, but you can overcome what you have done, providing that you do not let your past immobilize you or reduce your image of yourself through guilt or shame or the fear of righteous retribution. I would suggest that you remind yourself now that you, from this moment forward, will never again be the victim of what you have done and permitted other people to do to you by causing you to live in this no escape pitfall of the past, thinking what might have been, or if only I had not done that. You see, you can only live in present moments, in the now, the I am. This is where the power is, and nothing significant, no changes can really take place in your life or my life except in the present moment. It's preposterous and self-defeating to let yourself be hurt by what used to be or to long to go back to what never was. Now, in addition to your own past, there are many other things that you're incapable of changing, which consequently are logically fruitless for you to be upset about or to even spend any time thinking about, except a passing moment here or there when you should fritter away some time on just enjoying a present moment. The first thing that you can do absolutely nothing about that I'm going to bring to your attention might surprise you, because you at first thought might think, well, this has nothing to do with me. It's the weather. The weather. Do you know that so many of us have almost a fetish about the weather? It was not Will Rogers who first said, everybody talks about the weather, but nobody does anything about it. It was a man by the name of Charles Dudley Warner. Rogers picked it up some 50 years after Warner expressed it, but everybody talked about the weather. And some of the highest paid talkers in radio and television today are those people who report the weather. They put the weather on last. You know why? because we'll wait to see how the weather's going to be. Right? How's the weather going to be tomorrow? The most often dialed number in Detroit, guess what it is? The weather. I'll bet you know it. You simply cannot change the weather. Well, it's okay to like the weather, to enjoy the weather, to make up your mind that you are going to participate with the weather. I can tell you that one of the most difficult decisions that I ever had to make was to like winter in Detroit. It took me a while to succumb to that. But now that I've made up my mind, I absolutely adore it. Especially if it doesn't snow. You don't have to pretend that you like inclement weather, but stop letting inclement weather control you. Let me give you an example. Last Saturday, it snowed 1.5 inches, almost. Right? I knew that on Sunday morning, about 20 or 25% of the people who attend our services would not be there because it snowed 1.5 inches on Saturday. And I was right. Because we look out the window on Saturday and think, gosh, it's snowing. And on Sunday morning, we say it snowed yesterday. The weather controls us. I first became aware of this about 26 years ago. It was after I had stopped imbibing a little bit too much sometimes. And one day I was about to do something that should have been done by me, and I looked out the window and saw the weather, and it was bad weather. And so I decided not to do that which I needed to do. And then I suddenly remembered that never in my life, not one time, had bad weather kept me from going to a bar. Never did. And so I made a decision right then that bad weather would never keep me from going anywhere. And that as a matter of fact, I would enjoy the process of going. And so bad weather has been for 26 years one of the most exciting experiences of my life. And living up here, you know how exciting my life is. The weather does not bother me, but God grant me the serenity to accept the fact that other people are so affected by the weather that they don't come to church on Sunday. And I'm teasing because I've made my peace with that. Something else that you simply cannot change is time. Remember those moments when you say, gosh, time moves so slowly. Oh. You can spend a week around here in about 1.5 hours. Or time moves so rapidly. Time has never moved slowly or rapidly. It just moves. It just does what it does, doesn't it? Time is always doing its own thing. So let your only concern about time be these two concerns: that you use it well, that in this increment of time that you have called your day, that you do with great enthusiasm as many of the things as you possibly can that ought to be done by you. And one other thing, that you always be on time. Always be on time? Of course. Now, I have known people who are always on time, meaning they're always 30 minutes late. They're on time. That's their time, 30 minutes late. Some people only wear a watch to see how late they are. If you have this as a time problem, make a decision now to decide to be on time. And on time means being early. And watch what happens to you. There will be a startling change that will come over your consciousness. I will not describe it to you. I will let you enjoy the excitement when it occurs. There's something like unto time that you cannot change. Your age. You simply cannot change your age. When we were young, remember, we were always too young. When you were 14 or 15 or 16, you were thinking, wait until I get a little older. And then you got a little older and you were too old. Remember when you were 29 and almost 30, what a shock that was? And if you haven't arrived at that point yet, then you've got an exciting moment coming in your life. Let me tell you something about your age. Your age is exactly right for you. It's perfect. It fits you and it's good, and don't be disturbed about it. Do never for a moment spend another moment being concerned about your age. That's something that you learned. It's an acquired thing of the intellect, of the ego. And it is self-immobilizing. You're exactly the right age. Inside this body that has been upon this planet a period of time, your spirit is ageless. It is above time. It does not know time. Now, this next subject that I will share with you, this matter that I promise you, you cannot change. You may even consider me to be a heretic if I tell you to not be concerned about this matter. Taxes. Do not be concerned about taxes. If you're concerned about taxes, and many people are concerned about taxes, I can promise you that the only good that will come of that will be that you will live a life filled with present moment stress. Taxes have always been. They're always going to be. You cannot of yourself determine how high those taxes will be, can you? God grant me the serenity to accept the fact that taxes exist and always will be. Let me make a suggestion to you. Get a good tax consultant or accountant and turn your finances, and that includes your annual tax report, over to that person, and then forget it. Do you know that I simply do not know what tax bracket I'm in or how much I paid in taxes last year? I wrote the checks to the federal, the state, and the city government. And I simply do not care. Does that sound strange? It was not always that way with me, but I made up my mind not to care. Never, as long as I live, am I going to spend 10 more seconds being concerned about how much I pay for taxes. As a matter of fact, I hope that I spend more money on taxes this year than I did last year. Don't you hope I do? You like me, don't you? Many people spend hours and hours a year reacting to their taxes. And the government that imposes those taxes, golly, and that person that I voted for said that he was going to lower taxes. Of course he did. He knew that you would vote for him. And he knew that he could not do one thing about the taxes. Now there's something like unto it. It's inflation. Oh, inflation. I promise you that as long as we know each other, I will never spend 10 seconds being concerned about inflation. Can you do anything about inflation? Not one thing. God grant me the serenity to accept the rate of inflation. Now, this does not mean that I will not spend my money wisely. Will you? And I will do those things that the economists say to do within reason, as long as I don't have to worry about it. I will never worry about anything that I cannot change, especially inflation. Here's a very important thing. Some people spend a great deal of their energy, all their lives, being concerned about other people's opinion of them. Oh, did you feel the rustle in the air when I said that? What other people think of you is totally up to them. And they will pretty much believe as they want to believe about you, whether you like it or not. And I can promise you that there's some people that you know that do not think that you're the lovely, kind, thoughtful, sweet, dedicated, hard-working person that I know you are. And if they think it, they'll also think you're a phony. What difference does it make? It simply does not. Do your best to treat them as you'd like to be treated, but don't attempt to reason with them. And remember that you can't afford to compromise yourself in attempts to sway them. You do not need their good opinion. Now, the moment that you realize this and surrender that almost insatiable desire to be liked by everyone, then suddenly you will find that more people than ever will begin to like you. Stop trying to have them like you. Now, do not hear me say that this is licensed to become contemptible or abusive to other people. No, no, no. To everyone, offer your very highest all the time. And then go your way, understanding them, liking them to the best of your ability to do so, forgiving them if they despitefully use you or say unkind things about you. It's not important. It's very important what you think about yourself and other people, but it is not important what other people think about you. Do you think that I think for one moment that everybody that's seated here, all 400 or 500 of us, like me? Or even agree with what I'm saying? I don't. Now, it would be nice if all of us did. But I have found in my life that there have been certain moments when my critics were my friends. I've discovered more things about myself that I could change from the people who did not like me so pretty good. Now, mind you, I did not go to them and tell them that. I just made the change along the way. Something else that you cannot change. Your height. Put on high-heel shoes, but that really doesn't do it. And your general physical presence. You can't change your ears or your crooked toes. You can change your weight. You really can. You can put some on if you need it. You can reshape your body if you really are dedicated to doing that. And it's very important that we do, because we live in this incredible machine and we need to take good care of it. And it responds to the love that we give it. But did you know that there are people probably seated here tonight that have spent hours agonizing because of some particular feature of their body? I dare say that there has never been a woman whose breasts were exactly the right size. Forgive me for being so personal, but it's strange how we never see ourselves and accept ourselves in the right light. I can recall when I was a young man that it was like going to the doctor and getting a shot to go into the clothing store and stand in front of one of those mirrors that lets you see yourself into infinity. You can see yourself from all angles. I could hardly bear my looks. And then I made my peace with my looks. And it was startling how I changed after that. Look at yourself, this body that you have. It's remarkable. Learn to love it a lot. Enjoy it, appreciate it, and you will see that it will begin to respond to you. Something else that you simply can't change. And so there's no need to be distressed about or to even spend very much time worrying over who won the election or the football game. I must admit to you that when the Dallas Cowboys lose, it takes me about 15 seconds to get over it. And I'm serious. I trigger a little mechanism in my mind that says, okay, you lost, you blew it, now it's out of my mind. I really get with that game while it's going, but I'm not going to let it live in me. Do you let those things live in you? Do you carry them forward in you? What about the large-scale social evils? We have them upon this earth. Who said that the earth was fair? It isn't. Are you going to get caught up? I've known people to get caught up in social injustice and in the injustices that have occurred because our nation or some other nation has gone to war. And in their own emotional response, they became more bitter, more angry, more violent than what they were against. I've seen it. God grant me the serenity to not be disturbed about anything that I cannot change, but give me the courage to immediately go into action to change those things that I can. If I see one person in distress, give me the ability and the love to respond. I can change that. I can help. I can restore. I can be a mighty force for good here in this now moment with this person who has a need. I can, but not if I get so caught up there in the larger scale that I forget where I am here. Where I am. Make a decision to never again become distraught or unhappy because other people choose to fight. They've been fighting since the first two cavemen picked up a club. Just make sure that you are neither the hit or the hittee. And be at peace. Now, please do not be disturbed about other people's illnesses. When I say this to you, you may at first think that I am cold. Do not be disturbed when my loved one is sick, my child, my spouse, my sibling, my dearest friend. Do not be disturbed. You will become a victim if you do, and if their illness is grave and your distress corresponds to their illness, it will immobilize your ability to help them. Do not join them in their illness. And you see, there's a tendency for us to do this. Carry to them your strength, your love, your support. Empathy, but not sympathy. Feeling, oh yes, feeling. Love them, love them, love them. Let your love come alive, and it may become the greatest healing influence that they experience. But we have a tendency when someone becomes ill, especially if it appears to be critical, to become negatively charged ourselves. God grant me the serenity to not let this happen. And there is another thing likened to it. It's called death. In my whole life, I have never known one person over 150 years old. Not one. What does this tell me? When that little baby comes kicking and squealing into the world, and we all gather around with our cameras and take photographs, and you grandparents bring them along to show them, on the other end of that string, there's another experience that we call death. And why should we make coming through this doorway such a delightful experience and create a tragedy when we step through this other doorway? Why should the very spiritual and religious heritage that has taught us so much, our Judeo-Christian heritage, that teaches a system of eternal life, be also the same uninformed system that teaches the tragedy of death? And if you do not believe that Judaism and most of Christianity teaches the tragedy of death, go to a funeral sometime and you will see it there. You will see people who are put upon to suffer, and if they do not suffer, then there's something wrong with them. And I say for all time, relinquish that. It's a manufactured thing. Our morbid attitudes about death are largely cultural, and they're learned. And you can change your attitude, and it's very important that you do. Remember Jonathan Swift's words about death. It is impossible that anything so natural, so necessary, and so universal as death should ever have been designed by providence as an evil to mankind. In reality, there is no death. There is the experience called stepping out of your body or dying. But there's no death. So do not let someone else's death cause you to stop living. I have known people who stopped living because a beloved friend died. Death is an incredibly beautiful experience when it comes. Let's know it. This is an exciting universe, and you will never be extinguished. Your flame will always shine more brightly than that light that is illumining me at this moment. Perhaps you, like many other people, are living today based upon your earlier beliefs, and most of these beliefs no longer apply. And if so, you might feel trapped by your past, but be unwilling to let go and start afresh. And if this is true, you may have become a victim by wallowing around in some part of your past life, or in permitting another person to keep you pegged to some part of your past. And so often this has been true between lovers and spouses, especially in those areas that apply to what one would refer to as the sexual indiscretions of the other. How could you possibly have done that thing to me? I did not meet you until 10 years later, but how could you have done that to me? I am wounded, and I'm going to stay wounded, and I'm going to wound you with my wound. My beautiful friend, never do that to anyone else, and never permit that to be done to you. And if such an experience has occurred in your life and you have talked about it and talked it out, then I would suggest, if it's an experience that's based on something out of your past, sexual experience, or anything else, and you've said no to the person who keeps pointing to that situation, then from this moment forward, if they bring it up again, smile and reach over and touch them or kiss them on the cheek and walk away. And say as you go, I love you, I really do, but I think I will go for a walk or a drive, and when I return, the subject will be changed. And mean it. Do not wallow around in your past. As you assess your past influences, make sure that you're not hanging on to the belief that anyone else is responsible for what you're feeling or doing or even failing to do today. For example, if you catch yourself blaming your parents or your grandparents or the hard times that you grew up in or anything, if there's any blame whatsoever at this moment, release that concept. Today is a brand new experience, and you have the ability to decide how you're going to live today, and nothing that has ever happened back there, no thing has any power over you except that you have given that power to that situation. So don't do it. Did you know that most people, after spending great sums of money and time in therapy, have discovered from their past some of these things? That their parents were either irresponsible or too inhibited. Their mother was overprotective or was underprotective. Their father abandoned them or their father was too strict. That everyone did everything for them or no one did anything for them. They were either the oldest child or the youngest child or the middle child or the fourth child. The times were really tough or times were too easy. They lived in the ghetto or they lived in a mansion over on Lakeshore Drive that was such a problem for them that they have not been able to overcome it. They had no freedom or they had too much freedom. What difference does it make? Oh, yes, you had your experiences there, but now that you've become a mature person, you put away these childish things. You do, you put them away. And you put them away by taking thought and becoming willing to stop digging around in the trash barrel. Well, vow to learn from your past, but do not repeat it by talking about it endlessly. If you've made your peace with it, then great. Then set it aside and do not live in it. Bring it up. What does it have to do with you? Work at enjoying the present moment as it happens. This has been an exciting day. It has for me. I can tell you that this week, because of the many responsibilities that exist in my life, coming together into focus at this time, has been what would have been the most difficult week. There has simply not been enough time to do the things that I've needed to do. And the major decisions that I have had to make have been absolutely delicious and delightful. Because I've had to work to live in now moments. Now moments, a now moment, a now moment, a now moment. A now moment, a now moment, a now moment. And in a now moment, you always find the strength and the wisdom to know exactly what to do. If you're in a now moment, you're in the presence of God. You are in the flow of an energy and of a power. And life has never brought you anything that you cannot handle in a now moment. It is only when you get into the past or then try to sweep forward into a compensating future. Your past was not good enough, but certainly the future will. Now is unpleasant. Now is exquisite. Enjoy it. Get the hang of living in now moments and watch how your life changes. Charles Dervige wrote, "They taught us to remember. Why did they not teach us to forget?" I know people whose minds are filled with the most unnecessary baggage. All the things that they talk about endlessly that lead nowhere. The story that goes on and on endlessly. They took their vacation, and then they come back and they want you to take their vacation. Now, your assignment this week for creative living is to work hard at eliminating your own complaints or comments about things that you can do nothing to change. Things like these examples that I've shared with you. Watch your thinking, and especially watch your language, and watch your inner talking. If you're riding down the road talking to yourself, watch what you're talking about. And if it's something that you cannot change, stop it. Stop it. Live in a now moment. Oh, it's okay to watch the sunset. Enjoy the sunset, to be caught up in the sunset, or to be caught up in a conversation, a meaningful conversation with a friend, to touch someone's hand, or to listen to music in a now moment. I had little chill bumps that went down the backs of my arms when I thought of music. Music is so exciting, and in a now moment, you can feel it. You become the instrument that it plays. You are a child of the universe, and your life is exquisitely good. So check yourself when you hear these useless complaints, and when you become involved in something that leads absolutely nowhere, and bring yourself into a now experience and become involved with something that is important. Use your energy and your thought energy well. And it's very important that you silently forgive everyone that you think has wronged you in the past. And vow not to keep on victimizing yourself with remembrances of what they did to you or that private vengeance. Have you ever said to yourself, I'll fix them, and you just put them in the right place and you got them there and you fixed them? Don't. The master teacher, Jesus Christ, who knew more about how our minds work than anyone who's walked the face of the earth, told us a major secret. And what I will read to you followed immediately after the teaching of the withering of the fig tree. Remember when he withered a fig tree? All of us wither fig trees regularly. We're always withering fig trees with our mind, with our thought. Now, he said to his disciples, if you only have faith in God, faith is expectancy. This is the absolute truth. You can say to this Mount of Olives, you can say to the largest, most mountainous problem that you have, rise up and fall into the Mediterranean, and your command will be obeyed. Rise up and fall into Lake St. Clair, and it will happen. It will disappear. Now here's the catch. All that's required is that you really believe and have no doubt. All that's required. Wow. Listen to me. Exclamation point. You can pray for anything, italicized. And if you believe, you have it, it's yours. But when you're praying, first forgive anyone you're holding a grudge against, so that your Father in heaven will forgive you your sins also. If your life has not been going as well as you wish it to, if your prayers have not really been answered, look around you and see if you're holding a judgment against one other person. If you in any small way blame a single person upon this earth, or a condition, or a city, or a state, or a government, release it. Let it go. And in that moment you will establish a new law for yourself called mercy. We have cried for justice, and justice would do us all in. We need mercy, and that's the law that says forgive. Now this week I would also want to strongly urge you to actively take risks in your relationships. No matter what your age or how long you've lived in the present manner, it's never too late to start again. And to do so, you're going to have to make a choice between living fully or living super cautiously, which is almost not living at all. So often we spend our years protecting ourselves from life, insulating ourselves, and finally we get to the point that we simply can't make any new moves because what will they think? They'll be hurt, they'll be wounded. Well, we must take risks. We must become vulnerable. You see, changing is what keeps you alive. And being fully alive is what will make you charismatic. And struggle with a worthwhile adventure moving toward your own goals will change your life dramatically. And the moment that you begin to move into action, you'll fall in love with yourself. You really will begin to love yourself. And the moment that you begin to love yourself, almost everyone else will begin to love you too. But people who try to cling to the status quo by never growing old, by never doing anything differently, they're the ones who already are old, regardless of their age, and you can see it in their eyes. To be willing to admit that you make mistakes and to become excited about changing those mistakes is so rewarding. So I would suggest that this week you reevaluate some of your beliefs and opinions. Take stock of your point of view and examine, for example, your ethics and see if you're locked into a system of ethics that is not necessarily real or certainly is not real for you. If you have certain words in your mind such as always or never or should or must or have to, if you're locked into a fixed stance, then become willing to make some changes. Try to live with your eyes open. And while I would suggest that you do not intentionally create a crisis, don't avoid a crisis either. If you see that you need to make some changes, some important changes in your life, and it's going to cause a crisis in a relationship, then move right into it eagerly, joyfully, with excitement. And watch what begins to happen. I've never seen anyone change dramatically until they went through a series of shocks or crises. As a matter of fact, I can tell you in all truth that I stand here tonight in the life that I love so well, doing that which I love to do, because of the crises that came in my life over a period of time. Those things that I would have avoided but could not avoid, and so finally I had to make up my mind to march as majestically as I could into them, have turned out to be the exciting growth experiences and spirit-producing demonstrations that have made me the person that I am today, and I'm sure it will be that way for you too. But there must be a willingness to be more than you are. Are you willing to be more than you are? To be more exciting, more delightful, richer, wiser, are you? Well, you can change the way you think about yourself. And if so, you can change the way you are. But first there is a decision that must be made by you. Now in summary, our minds are capable of storing an incredible amount of data. And this is a blessing. But it can also be a curse when we find ourselves carrying memories which can do nothing but hurt us, carrying information that has absolutely no value, living in little dream systems. And so our prayer is, God, fill my mind with worthwhile stuff. Thoughts and feelings that will work for me now. Attitudes that will change my life. A new belief system based on my continued certainty that the power whose creative handiwork is so evident in the universe is busily at work reforming, reshaping, and restoring me. In the 21st chapter of Revelations, next to the last chapter in the Bible, these words, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, and I heard a great voice saying, Behold, the dwelling of God is with men. He will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself will be with them. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain any more, for the former things have passed away. Behold, I make all things new." And I know that this process is already alive in you. God bless you.